The intensely fought tank battles of the Western Front were fundamentally and fatally defined by a clash of two radically different and irreconcilable design philosophies between the United States and Germany. The U.S. industrial and military leadership sought to prioritize the production of a reliable, highly mass-producible, and easily maintainable medium tank platform, a strategy that resulted directly in the M4 Sherman. Its entire design prioritized crucial elements like logistics, standardization of parts, and mechanical simplicity, intended specifically to equip vast mechanized armies quickly and sustainably across two global theaters of war. Germany, conversely, driven by Adolf Hitler's constant and overriding obsession with achieving overwhelming technical superiority, favored heavier, complex, and technologically advanced designs like the Tiger and Panther. These German tanks ruthlessly prioritized maximizing individual combat effectiveness, featuring significantly thicker armor and much heavier guns, even if it necessitated sacrificing efficient mass production, logistical ease, and, critically, mechanical reliability. This profound divergence set the decisive stage for the quantitative versus qualitative struggle that ultimately defined and concluded the European armored war. The M4 Sherman was the undisputed industrial powerhouse of the entire Allied armored forces, with over 50,000 units eventually rolling off American assembly lines during the rapid wartime mobilization, a feat of unprecedented industrial speed. Its robust design, finalized hastily in 1941, was a direct product of America's immense, rapidly mobilized industrial capacity and the urgent need to field a tank quickly. The Sherman featured a dependable, easy-to-manufacture radial engine, later replaced by standardized twin diesel setups, a moderately effective 75mm gun, and a turret that could traverse quickly, compensating for its limited range. Crucially, its standardized components allowed damaged tanks to be quickly repaired and returned to service with unprecedented speed and minimal effort by non-specialized maintenance crews. The strategic philosophy behind the Sherman was mathematically simple. Mobility, reliability, and sheer overwhelming quantity would inevitably defeat any technically superior opponent, ensuring that for every one German tank on the field, the Allies could sustainably bring 3 or 4 well-supplied Shermans to bear. The German Tiger, which first appeared dramatically in North Africa and later on the Eastern and Western fronts, represented the pinnacle of German heavy tank engineering and the qualitative threat the Allies feared most. Weighing in at a massive 57 tons, nearly double the operational weight of the Sherman, the Tiger featured exceptionally thick vertical armor plating, up to 100mm, and was armed with the truly formidable 80E Tameter KWK 36L56 gun. The Tiger's powerful 80mm round could reliably penetrate the Sherman's entire frontal armor from distances exceeding 1,500 meters, a terrifying range advantage, while the standard Sherman 75mm round was often rendered completely useless against the Tiger's thick front glacis. Its initial psychological impact on Allied troops was immense and immediate, forcing Allied crews to adopt extreme caution, completely rewrite their engagement protocols, and utilize radically altered, high-risk tactics whenever a Tiger was reported in their sector. Equally formidable, and arguably a more significant long-term structural threat to the Allied advance than the low-production Tiger, was the Panther, PZKPW-5. Designed directly as a technological response to the robust Soviet T-34 tank encountered on the Eastern Front, the Panther incorporated crucial design innovations like highly sloped armor, which dramatically increased effective armor thickness against incoming rounds, and was armed with the high-velocity 75mm KWK 42 L-70 gun. The Panther, though technically lighter and intended as a medium tank, still decisively outclassed the Sherman in both protective armor and concentrated firepower. Its sloped frontal armor was nearly impenetrable to the standard Sherman gun, and its powerful 75mm cannon could knock out a Sherman from distances where the Sherman could not effectively return fire, creating a severe tactical mismatch. The sheer technical disparity forced American commanders to seek engagements where they could successfully negate the Panther's superior frontal protection by executing dangerous flanking maneuvers. The most immediate and terrifying disparity for the average American tank crew was the vast difference in effective engagement range and armor penetration capability. The early and most common Sherman 75mm M3 gun was tactically adequate against older, thinner-skinned German tanks like the Panzer IV, but its high-explosive anti-tank round was often entirely ineffective as an anti-tank weapon against the frontal armor of the new Tiger and Panther models. American crews discovered, to their peril, that they often had to dangerously close the range to less than 300 meters and hope to hit a weak spot or successfully flank for the 75mm shell to stand a chance of penetration. In stark contrast, the German 88mm Tiger and high-velocity 75mm Panther could score reliable, lethal kills at distances exceeding 1,500 meters, often before the Sherman was even within range to fire. This consistent disparity meant U.S. crews were always fighting a desperate uphill battle, taking accurate fire long before they could effectively engage their opponent. The M4 Sherman quickly earned a grim and unfortunate battlefield nickname among some Allied crews: the Ronson, a direct reference to a popular, easy-to-use cigarette lighter, morbidly implying it ignited easily when successfully hit. This dangerous perception was due in large part to the initial faulty placement of ammunition in dry racks high up near the turret ring. When the Sherman was successfully penetrated by enemy fire, the resulting internal shrapnel often struck the exposed ammunition, causing violent secondary explosions and catastrophic fires. While later versions of the Sherman quickly introduced wet stowage, storing the volatile ammo in water-filled jackets to reduce risk, which significantly lowered the vehicle's actual fire rate, the early reputation and psychological fear persisted throughout the war. The perception of vulnerability, even when statistically improved, was a constant, heavy mental burden for the young American crews facing superior German guns. While the German heavy tanks boasted unquestionable superior protection and raw firepower, their severe technical complexity proved to be a crippling and constant logistical weakness. The Tiger's intricate transmission system and powerful engine were notoriously prone to frequent, catastrophic mechanical breakdowns, often requiring extensive maintenance hours, specialized knowledge, and heavy, dedicated recovery equipment to repair or recover. The Sherman, conversely, was famed throughout the Allied forces for its robust reliability and extraordinary ease of field maintenance. Its simple radial engine and completely standardized components meant that a damaged Sherman could often be repaired and returned to the fight in a matter of hours by non-specialized crews using readily available parts, whereas a broken-down Tiger was far more likely to be abandoned and destroyed by its own crew to prevent capture. This operational reliability and maintenance efficiency was arguably the most significant and often decisive long-term American advantage. Faced with the grim, tactical reality that direct frontal engagement with a Tiger or Panther was almost always suicidal for a Sherman U.S. Army doctrine, particularly after the painful lessons learned during the North Africa campaign, heavily emphasized numerical superiority rapid tactical maneuver, and calculated flanking maneuvers. The core tactical directive, drilled into every crew, was to utilize the Sherman's superior speed and agility to quickly close the distance and attack the German heavy tanks' known weak spots. The thinner side and rear armor, the relatively vulnerable gun mantelet, or the easily targeted engine deck. This tactic was terrifyingly high risk, requiring crews to expose themselves to intense, accurate German fire during the approach, but it consistently offered the only viable path to victory against the technically superior German designs, turning the Sherman's speed into its primary weapon. Recognizing the technical limitations of the standard M4 Sherman gun against the new German armor, the U.S. Army developed a separate, highly specialized combat concept, the Tank Destroyer TD battalions. These units were equipped with lightly armored, highly mobile, open-topped vehicles like the M10 Wolverine and the incredibly fast M18 Hellcat, armed with high-velocity 76 Mini, later 90mm guns, specifically designed for deep armor penetration. The TD doctrine was one of aggressive ambush and swift retreat. Seek out the enemy armor deep behind lines, hit them hard and fast from an unexpected angle, and use superior speed to vanish before the Germans could effectively respond or retaliate. While they were not true tanks themselves, the tank destroyers often bore the immense brunt of direct engagements with the toughest German armor, providing essential anti-tank firepower. To successfully mitigate the devastating firepower gap, the US eventually introduced an upgraded and much-needed version of the Sherman armed with the higher-velocity 76 mm M1 gun. This powerful gun offered significantly better armor penetration capabilities, finally giving American crews a reasonable chance to penetrate the side armor of both the Panther and Tiger from greater distances, though the frontal armor of the heavy tanks remained highly problematic. However, the introduction of the 76mm model was frustratingly slow due to bureaucratic and production bottlenecks, and many veteran units initially preferred the old 75mm gun for its demonstrably superior high-explosive HE round, which was better suited for supporting infantry and clearing fortified positions. The persistent dilemma over pure anti-tank firepower versus versatile utility persisted throughout the long war. One of the most effective and popular late-war improvements to the Sherman platform was the M4A3E8, famously known to the crews as the Easy 8. This crucial variant paired the high-velocity 76mm gun with a vastly improved horizontal volute spring suspension HVSS system. The HVSS system provided a noticeably smoother ride, especially while traversing rough, shelled terrain, allowing the tank to maintain speed and aim more effectively while moving at speed. The system also necessitated the use of wider tracks, which reduced ground pressure, thus improving mobility significantly in deep mud and heavy snow, a major factor in the later stages of the war. The Easy 8 was widely considered the peak evolutionary design of the Sherman, finally offering a far better balance of speed, stability, and necessary armor-piercing firepower for the final grueling push into Germany. The German military strategy of relentlessly prioritizing qualitative superiority was ultimately and fatally defeated by the crushing quantitative reality of the Allied war machine. While the Tiger and Panther were recognized as technical marvels, they were consistently crippled by severe production constraints and insurmountable logistical difficulties. Germany struggled desperately to produce more than a few thousand Panthers and even fewer Tigers throughout the entire conflict, primarily due to catastrophic resource scarcity, especially specialized alloying metals, the immense number of man-hours required for assembly, and devastating targeted Allied bombing campaigns. This inherent limitation meant that the German army could never deploy their superior tanks in the necessary, overwhelming numbers to stop the massive, continuous waves of Allied armor and infantry, inevitably resulting in German losses that could simply not be replaced, leading to a structural defeat. The core, defining characteristic of the American strategy was simply overwhelming the enemy with continuous, seemingly inexhaustible, sustainable force. By D-Day, the Allies had achieved decisive air superiority and could call upon a vast, seemingly bottomless supply of M4 Sherman tanks. For every one Tiger produced over the course of the war, the US produced, on average, over 25 Shermans. This massive numerical advantage allowed commanders to adopt high-risk tactics that effectively leveraged losses, sacrificing several Shermans to pin down and distract a single Panther and then destroy it with flanking fire, artillery support, or close air support. This harsh battlefield reality, while strategically and tactically effective, often weighed heavily on the conscience and survival instinct of the young American tank crews. The psychological strain and burden placed upon American tank crews was immense and unrelenting. They were acutely aware that their armor was thinner and their main gun less capable than those of their primary German opponents. The common knowledge that they often needed 4 Shermans to guarantee the destruction of one Tiger led to genuine, intense fear and debilitating anxiety when encountering the heavier German models, particularly in close quarters. The crushing reality was compounded by the speed and finality with which a German 80E military shell could punch through the Sherman's armor, often resulting in immediate catastrophic destruction. Despite this acknowledged, terrifying disparity, American crews consistently advanced, relying on their rigorous training, reliable communication, and the unwavering support of their comrades to face down the overwhelming threat, cementing their courage in the face of adverse odds. Crucially, the M4 Sherman rarely fought the powerful Tiger in an isolated pure tank duel. A key, often overlooked, part of the American advantage was the efficient, devastating integration of artillery and close air support. If a Tiger was successfully located and its position fixed, American artillery batteries could quickly blanket the area with overwhelming suppressive fire, often disabling the Tiger's crew or crippling its delicate running gear, making it a static, easy target for Shermans to approach and finish. Similarly, the Allies' near-total air superiority meant that dedicated ground attack aircraft, like the powerful P-47 Thunderbolt, became highly effective tank busters, significantly reducing the need for Shermans to engage the heavy tanks directly on the ground. The Americans were hesitant to field a tank with a significantly larger gun due to deep-seated logistical and standardization concerns, but the British developed a crucial, effective ersatz solution, the Sherman Firefly. The British cleverly replaced the standard 75mm gun with their potent high-velocity 17-pounder anti-tank gun, a powerful weapon capable of reliably penetrating the frontal armor of both the Panther and Tiger. While the Firefly was instantly recognizable due to its long barrel and was predictably prioritized by German crews as a high-value target, its rapid introduction provided Allied armor with a much-needed qualitative counter to the German heavy tanks, often fighting alongside American units and compensating for the M4's original critical firepower deficit. The operational experience inside the massive Tiger and Panther tanks was also fraught with technical challenges and immense psychological burdens. While the crews enjoyed an initial, fleeting sense of technical invulnerability behind their thick armor, they suffered from the constant psychological stress of knowing their tanks were practically irreplaceable by the struggling German industry. German crews frequently faced overwhelming Allied air superiority and were often forced to withdraw due to catastrophic fuel shortages or non-combat mechanical failure rather than battle damage. When a Tiger was inevitably immobilized, the crew knew that a relentless swarm of Shermans or devastating artillery fire would soon follow, leading to immense pressure on maintenance and repair personnel to perform miracles under fire, a pressure their complex vehicles rarely allowed them to overcome. Logistics was unequivocally the unsung American weapon that ultimately and decisively defeated the German qualitative advantage. The U.S. military doctrine ensured that for every single tank on the front line, there was a robust, flexible, and fully operational supply chain ready to deliver fuel, critical spare parts, and, most importantly, replacement tanks and fully trained crews. This systemic reliability allowed the Allies to sustain continuous combat pressure and replace losses virtually instantly, whereas the German replacement cycle was impossibly slow and structurally inflexible. The sheer, overwhelming flow of American material negated the battlefield dominance of the individual German tank and was the ultimate, sustainable expression of American industrial and organizational might. The numerical tally of the tank war tells the ultimate sobering story of quantitative superiority, proving that mass production was the most decisive factor. While the Sherman often suffered a poor kill-loss ratio in isolated duels with the technically superior Tiger and Panther, the strategic and economic reality overwhelmingly favored the Allied industrial base. The Germans lost their heavy tanks at a rate they simply could not sustain, with every lost Panther representing weeks of irreplaceable effort and vast resources, compounded significantly by high rates of non-combat breakdowns and inevitable abandonment in the face of advancing Allied forces. The M4 Sherman, by its sheer omnipresence, robust reliability, and ubiquity, was instrumental in maintaining the inexorable, crushing advance across Europe, acting as the indispensable engine of the Allied thrust. The quantitative strategy succeeded precisely because the Allies possessed the industrial resilience and tactical flexibility to absorb necessary losses and quickly replace them, inevitably winning the prolonged, grinding war of attrition and ensuring that German technical excellence could never overcome the Allied ability to field the next fighting vehicle. The legacy of the Sherman versus the Tiger is one of profound, lasting courage and decisive, unrelenting industrial might. The young American tank crews, despite piloting a technically inferior vehicle and knowing their risk, faced down and ultimately defeated the best armor the Nazi regime could field. They did so by embracing a high-risk tactical doctrine, relying heavily on seamless communication, and crucially benefiting from the overwhelming, sustainable power of the American industrial machine. The battle was not won tank for tank, but strategically factory for factory. The story of the Sherman is the story of World War II itself, the triumph of well-led, supplied, and resilient mass democracy over technologically brilliant, but logistically brittle and resource-starved totalitarianism.